Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of Talking NASCAR with JB. Today we are going to remember Dale Earnhardt 20 years after his tragic passing in the 2001 Daytona 500. And evidently Elvis wants to be in the video, so he hopped up here. But we're going to start out by looking at his top 5 moments, in my opinion, of his career. And afterwards we're going to talk about his legacy song. Alright, starting out at number 5, at the Spring Bristol race in 1979, Dale Earnhardt won his first career race, his first of 76. And even though it's not included on my list, he would turn that into Rookie of the Year, and the next year he would win the championship in only his second season. Number 4 on the list is in 1995, winning the second annual Brickyard 400. And that race was one that he really wanted to be the first guy to win the inaugural event in 1994. Jeff Gordon beat him to it, though, so he would not get that done. But he would win the 95 the second year of the event, and would say he was happy to be the second man, if not the first, to win the race, taking a shot at Jeff as they were battling for the 95 championship, trying to get in his head. Number 3 on the list is winning his 7th championship in 1994 to tie the king, Richard Petty. For at the time, them two stood alone at the top of the mountain as far as championships in NASCAR are concerned, until 2017 when Jimmy Johnson would join them at the top of the list. His 7th championship would also be his last, as everybody knows. And the reason that this is 3rd on the list is just because of the next two. I believe most people would agree with me. Just in as far as moments in time, they stand out. Number 2, the fall 2000 race at Talladega, Dale Earnhardt would win his final Cup Series win. He was running outside the top 15 with under 5 to go, and would charge all the way back to take the lead on the final lap and win his 76th race. And he also would win the No Bull Million bonus that day by winning that race. Little did we know, just a few months later, we would lose him. But the top of the list, and I think most people would probably put this here, is winning the 1998 Daytona 500 after he had tried for 20 years. He had so many mishaps, so many second-place finishes. He finished second to Dale Jarrett twice. He'd finished second to Sterling Marlin, one of his wins. He was leading going into turn 3 in 90 and could have left her tire down. And it just, for some reason, had never came together for him. But finally, on that February day in 1998, he would make it happen. And the whole sport was happy for him. And that was evident by, as Mike Joyce said, every member from every crew was out on pit road to shake his hand as he went by, going to victory lane that evening. And that, in my opinion, is Dale Earnhardt's top 5 moments in his amazing career. There's so many more to highlight, but I decided to choose the top 5 in my opinion. And now that we're done highlighting his top 5 moments of his career, we're going to look back on his death, unfortunately, that occurred on February 18th, 2001, just 3 years after finally winning the Great American Race. As much as we hate to see that he lost his life in that race, and it's sad, every February, every true NASCAR fan, and you don't even have to be a real NASCAR fan, if you know the magnitude of what that was, you feel yourself thinking back. And it makes you feel sad. And I wasn't even old enough to be keeping up with racing then. So, but I still, every February before the 500, have a moment of just feeling down for a few seconds, thinking about what could have been. And that it should have been, I ain't gonna say could have been avoided, should have been avoided. Because over the previous year to 2 years, there have been so many drivers in NASCAR that we've lost in the different divisions. We had Adam Petty, Kenny Irwin Jr., Tony Roper, just to name a few, that unfortunately passed away and had the same injuries that Dale suffered that day in Daytona. And I really hate the fact that it took somebody of his stature for NASCAR to finally start pursuing safety at the rate they did by coming up with the safer barriers. Making the Hans device mandatory, which probably would have saved Dale's life that day. And it was out there, and a few drivers in the field wore them, but he refused to. But he was not the only driver in the field that refused to wear the Hans device. But later that year in October, they would finally mandate it. And also, they would, at the end of that year, mandate full-face helmets. And that is another thing that has played a big impact in the sport. Along with NASCAR pushing for just a few years later to come up with the car tomorrow, the COT, which nobody really liked the look of it, but I think most people understood the reasoning behind it. And luckily, as we've moved on, they were able to keep the same safety enhancements they made with the COT and put it into the Generation 6 cars and what we have now, and going into the next-gen car that's going to debut in 2022 in Speed Weeks. Now, instead of what I try to look at, and I think a lot of people in the industry look at this, or try to, Dale Sr.'s passing, as much as we wish it wouldn't have happened, Dale Sr.'s greatest legacy possibly is the fact that because of his passing, he has saved numerous lives in these race cars since 2001, because we have not had a single fatality since then. We've been lucky and only had a few really bad injuries, and most of those were early on in that first 2 or 3 years. The only wreck that comes close to that in the last several that hurt anybody was Ryan Newman, and thankfully he walked out of the hospital 2 days later. And just this past weekend in the Daytona 500, look at the wreck that Brad Keselowski and Kyle Busch had. Who's to say 20 years ago, if them cars hadn't changed, that either one of them got out of those race cars? Especially Brad. But I think we can all take solace in the fact that even though NASCAR lost its biggest name, and so many fans lost their heroes, Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Dale Sr.'s other kids had to lose their father, which is nothing that you ever want to see happen. But as far as the sport is concerned, I think it has wound up being Dale Earnhardt's biggest legacy, because he has saved countless lives from unfortunately losing his. But Jeff Gordon himself, in an interview before or during Speed Weeks last week, said that he knows for a fact that the vicious wreck that he had at Las Vegas in 2008, the Hans device saved his life. And without something happening to Dale Sr., that Hans device maybe would not have been around in 2008 or mandated yet. So as much as we wish Dale would have still stayed around, because we would have loved to have seen what would have been different in DEI's history with Dale Jr. in the 8 car. We all would have loved to have seen that. But he left a legacy behind him on just his career alone that we'll never forget. But the countless drivers he has saved and will save in the future years with wrecks that we haven't even seen yet, don't know about, is without a doubt a big legacy of his. And let's be honest, if you look back to 2002 at now Auto Club Speedway, when Dale Jr. had his vicious head-on wreck into the turn 4 wall after Kevin Harvick cut a rear tire down, Dale Sr. probably saved his own son's life, because by then Jr. was wearing the Hans device because he had to. And Dale Jr. and Jeff's wrecks are just a couple of drivers. I mean, there's been countless of them that have been saved by all the safety enhancements they've made after Dale Sr.'s death. Do I wish it would have happened? No. Obviously, nobody does. But unfortunately, it took somebody of his stature for NASCAR to get serious about safety. And that's on NASCAR, because they should have been taking it more seriously before the biggest name in the sport passed away. I wish I'd have been able to see Dale Sr. race more. I can barely remember seeing him race a time or two when I was growing up. I would love to have been able to see him race. This is the 20th anniversary of his unfortunate passing, and we still talk about him all the time. It'll be like that on the 50th anniversary of his passing, because he has left that lasting of a legacy on our sport. And until next time, we'll be back with more videos soon. We will have the vlog coming out from where me and Kendall went to the Daytona 500 this past weekend and went through that fun rain delay. But y'all have a great night. Dale Sr., continue to rest in peace. Bye.